Bach composed Cantata 106 for a private burial service. He was in Mühlhausen at that point, and he composed it because the death of a daughter of one of the ministers in Mühlhausen was the real occasion. And you can imagine that the title of the work, Gottes Zeit ist die allerbeste Zeit, has everything to do with that, has everything to do with when you die, you never know, be ready, but God knows it. And of course for a Christian at that time it was happily, he will know what's best for us. Every Sunday and every feast day of the year there was one and sometimes two cantatas. Sometimes Bach composed a cantata with two parts, just a longer cantata. Sometimes there were just one before, what they call in Germany, voor de predigt und nach der Predigt. One before the preaching, one after the preaching. And of course the preaching had something to do with the cantata, and the cantata had something to do with the preaching, with the Bible text of the day. So they are really complementary to each other. And we are used now that a church service will last an hour, maybe 75 minutes, not more. I think in Bach time normally a church service would last 3 hours, 4 hours. So they had really time to perform, let's say, two cantatas of 20, 25 minutes without any problem, because the minister would talk much, much more, the congregation would sing a lot, and so it was a real long adventure, you would say. And when you see in Bach's life, when I just said Bach was just a small composer for cantatas, he only made 300 or 400 cantatas, where apparently only 200 are left. You have to think Bach was not that person who was not unpractical. Like Handel, he knew what he could use again. And he started to compose when he was in Leipzig for every Sunday cantata. And he did it 2-3 years, maybe 4 years. And then he said, okay, that's enough. Now I can use them again. And he only composed the cantata when there was a special day, let's say when there was a 27th Sunday after Whitsun or something like that. Yeah, he had to compose a new cantata. Musicians nowadays performing early music will use a pitch which is 4/15, often lower than the modern piano, which is at 4/40. It's complicated when those numbers don't tell you anything. And if you think, if I go on and say that Bach, in his early cantatas, like all the composers in the 17th and early 18th century, were performing even a half tone higher in koortone, which is 465, then I think for everybody it's very unclear. But I can give an example. Modern pitch, 440, would be for 15, half tone lower, where normally most of the Bach cantatas are performed of, will be but koortone is a whole tone higher. If you perform nowadays a Bach cantata, you have really to think about what pitch to use. The 440, the piano pitch, is when you use early instruments, the wrong pitch, because Bach never had those modern instruments. So the choice is between 415 and 465, between and. Bach makes life normally very easy, because if we see his autograph scores, we see what he did. We see, for instance, that some of the wind instruments are transposing, and that's a sign, maybe a strange sign for us, but if I explain, it's clear. The woodwind instruments in Bach's time came mostly from France. In France, the pitch was even half tone lower than what I gave as example for 15. So if Bach was using those instruments and was performing in this very high pitch, a half tone higher than the piano, he needed to transpose his parts a minor third. So, to give an example, if he wanted C major, the instruments, the woodwind instruments coming from France should play in this pitch. But because the pitch was different, they came on the same note. So, if you see in his scores this transposition of a minor third, and as well the transposition of a whole tone, it means at that point he had woodwind instruments already in 415. Well, now, So the others played at 465. In the Leipzig cantatas, it's never the case. Bach made only a mistake, as you may say about such a great composer that he made mistakes, in his judgment. When he went to Leipzig, he thought there, as everybody, the organ plays 465, correct? So everybody performs in 465. And then he came there and he heard that the organist was transposing. Because there, his predecessor, Kuhnau, was fed up with his problem and maybe found as well that it was just the pitch was too high. And he said, Mr. Organist, please, could you transpose everything a tone down? And with Bach, when he got his job in Leipzig, he took over the same way. And you see an organ part which is written a tone lower than everything else. So with all those cantatas, we have no problem. One of the cantatas where we have a problem with is Actus Tragicus. Because there we have no autograph score. We have no parts used. We have only a score written after the death of Bach. At that time, of course, everybody played 4/15. And the curious thing is we see that the recorders, which are called flutes at that point, play notes which are not existing on the recorder, which cannot be right. And I think the only point there is people say, okay, then we should transpose the whole piece in F major, which often is done. There are editions of that. You could as well say in 1755 there was nobody, or almost nobody, who played recorder anymore. There were transverse flutes players, transverse players who played flute parts. They had notes lower than the recorder. So the person who made the copy of, the only copy existing of the score of Actus Tragicus, just found those transpositions and he just made everything in E flat major and the thing is ready. But we now, performing it with recorders, have a different job because we still have the problem that the recorders cannot play those notes. And my only suggestion is, and that's the way we performed it as well, is that still as well there, the string players, the gambas, the organ, the violone, they all played 465, the very high pitch, and the recorders played in 415, a tone lower, and so all the notes are playable. All the high notes are there, all the low notes are there, and the whole thing fits well. But we are not knowing for certain if Bach did it, because we don't have the original part, but it seems to me quite 100%.